Of a citywide conversation for the Reconnecting Communities program, which is a part of our campaign effort with Committee for Better New Orleans around building our future, which is focused on this special moment in New Orleans where we actually have many varied, substantial opportunities via increased federal funding to meet a lot of our local priorities here in New Orleans over the coming years. So this program is one of those, and we welcome you and thank you for being here. And with that, I'm going to get things started by handing the mic off to CBNO's Executive Director, Nellie Katzen.
Thanks so much, Rob, and hello, everyone. If you want to advance that slide for me, Rob, so we can get to the agenda. Hey, good evening. Most of you all know me. I see a lot of familiar faces on the call. We are going to dive right in here. This is the agenda. We'll do a welcome and introductions. If you would right now in the chat, introduce yourself with your name, and if you represent an organization, include that organization. So your name, your organization, and one word on how you're feeling today. One name, one organization, one word on how you're feeling in the chat. So we'll give a brief introduction about why we're here and what we expect to do today. Then we'll go into details about building our future, our current campaign. We'll go immediately into breakout groups, discussing what transportation routes divide your community. Then we'll talk about the opportunity. What opportunity is in front of us with the Reconnecting Community program, and what can we do about it? We'll have a discussion in breakout groups together about how divides impact our communities. We'll hear from 3 presenters. I will introduce them on the next slide, and then we'll go into breakout groups in a round robin format where we will actually have smaller groups in the breakouts so that we can make sure that everybody's questions, we have a greater chance of everybody's questions being addressed, and you can have some in-depth conversations. Finally, we'll dive into the future, into the past, into the future, and close with next steps. I'm delighted to introduce our presenters for this evening. We have a great lineup here. Props to Rob and the CBNO team for getting this together. Dan Jatres, the Infrastructure Project Administrator for the Office of Resilience at the City of New Orleans. We've had the pleasure of working with Dan and his team through our IIJA engagement work. Amy Stelly, Executive Director of the Claiborne Avenue Alliance. Sage Michael, a New Orleans climate justice organizer and a member of New Orleans for Lincoln Beach with Healthy Golf. We're partnering with Sage on a number of other things we'll get to in a moment. We're thrilled to have you all present tonight. Before we do, I wanted to just give a brief moment into why CBNO is having this conversation in the first place. Well, many of you all know that CBNO is an organization that brings people together. We help bridge the gaps between the people closest to the problems and the people closest to the solutions. If you could go back, Rob.
I came around the corner, they were fighting over the purse.
This is one in a number of citywide conversations. The photo on your screen right now is from 1968. It's an aerial photo of New Orleans. And this is not long after CBNO was founded in 1966. This is you can see in the background the Claiborne Expressway going up, but it does not yet have the footprint that it has today. And you can see along the riverfront, no park, no anything, port activity, and a different looking landscape than we have in New Orleans. We were literally divided by a number of things, including transportation infrastructure, but also including things like race and class. So we started to bring people together. Next slide, please. This is a photo from our 30th anniversary. We started bringing people together to help them understand, navigate, and influence the decisions that impact their lives. This is at our 30th anniversary. A number of our founding board members are pictured there. You may recognize some of them. In 2007, after the storm, we helped people come together and have a seat at the table when all of these planning decisions were being made about New Orleans recovery to make sure neighbors could come home. By 2017, we were helping people with learning how to navigate the city budget, something that still is a priority that we do, that we work on today. So in the social landscape, we are bringing people together. We are still coming up with creative ways to connect communities, to engage folks in the tough conversations, and to show up for our community as we do so. So just as the issues that we deal with today in terms of divided communities are the results of planning decisions that were made way back when that photo was taken, the decisions that we make today and tomorrow will shape the future. We're really thrilled to be a part of this. It is literally in CBNO's DNA to be bringing people together across race, class, and yes, highways, and other infrastructure, other divisions, to have these tough conversations and move the ball forward. Rob's going to talk more about what we're doing to advance that.
Thank you, Nellie. Appreciate that. So let me just pause here just briefly, just to once again just iterate why we're focused on what we're focused on now with this campaign, Building Our Future. As I mentioned right at the top, these next few years, these next 5 years in particular, we are going to see funding come down via the bipartisan infrastructure law that is coming after the American Rescue Plan and the CARES Act, and now a new Inflation Reduction Act. All of these provide in various programs millions and billions of dollars of at least possibilities for New Orleans and our surrounding neighbors to address some of our ongoing challenges. I think a lot of folks here, a lot of folks from New Orleans, a lot of folks who lived here a really long time know that we've had a lot of great plans for a long time. We haven't had the funding and the capacity to execute on all of those good ideas. And at least now we're looking at the possibility of having funding to make things real. So what you're looking at on this slide is what we are focused on at CBNO and regarding this opportunity, these opportunities. What we're doing right now, we're getting folks together, residents and stakeholders, explaining, providing information, listening to people's wants, reactions, thoughts, ideas that they might have around what's currently going on. Today, we're talking about reconnecting communities, but we're also doing it about other programs and related sectors. We're also gathering priorities directly from residents and community members. And we're working with the city, working with the council, working with other partners to actually strengthen and do what we can to support various proposals in order to make sure that the money and funding and progress actually happens. And I do want to highlight the fact that we have just gone into a new partnership with IC Change and Healthy Gulf in how we're going about collecting priorities and working directly with residents on the ground. So we're using the IC Change social platform to allow you to simply log on and do what you do best, which is post, right? Everyone's so great at posting, but this is a way for community partners all around New Orleans to be having these conversations, collecting these data points, to talk about infrastructure, to talk about flooding, to talk about transportation and food access and all of these things, and making it into a quilt that can be used to bring in funds, to collect the data, to put the data where it needs to be to make the most positive change. So you can start logging on today, but we'll have more to come on that. We are, in this regard, with IC Change and with Healthy Gulf, we're actually recruiting right now so that people can get paid to recruit their neighbors, to tell stories, to get these posts made. So please do, if you're interested in that. We're gonna have a lot more to come on this front. Another thing we're doing is we're going to City Council. We are the official community engagement partner with the joint task force of the City Council and our state legislators when it comes to IIJA, the bipartisan infrastructure law. So we're gathering these priorities. We're gathering your testimony. We're bringing you with us to the City Council to share what you have to say, the data, the stories, the other things that we can provide. We also have a standing working group to help us dig into the details of these grant funding opportunities. Those are our nerd outs, which we have a lot of fun with. So if you're interested, if you like fine print, please do hop on that train as well. And just want to make a plug really quick before we move further along into the details of Reconnecting Communities. We're going to have another one of these citywide conversations around these bipartisan infrastructure programs. And the next one we're going to do is the Protect program. So save the date, December 7th, 6 p.m. We think we're going to make this one in person, try to get folks actually in the same room. But just want to highlight this. This is an even larger program, and it's focused on resilience, transportation, resilience against climate impacts. So this is a big, big deal for everyone in South Louisiana, but probably no more so than New Orleans. So please do save that date. All right, so let's jump into a breakout group. Nelly is our Zoom train driver here. I don't know what, let me not use wrong metaphors here, but we are going to break out into sort of random groups of, I think, like 4 to 6 people, and just have you talk about, is there infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, a corridor, whatever the case may be, that is a barrier for your community, for you to get around, for you to do the things you have to do. That was good for folks. I got some of my thoughts out there. But we're gonna, so if you have further thoughts, I do want to get a little bit of a sense if, like, maybe one person from your group can, provide a little bit of what was shared there. Anything really stick out to anyone on the call?
I'm going to ask Sharani, who was in our group, to kind of report out. Go for it, Sharani.
Thanks. I think something that came up with everybody's conversation was the need for, I don't think we use this term, but the need for complete streets. The idea that it's not just buses, it's not just cars, it's not just pedestrians, it's everything is needed to make the community safe and whole. That came up, I think, with every single person who spoke. Does that feel right, Monica?
Yeah, I think so. I think we were, and then Anne mentioned a comprehensive plan, something that's well thought out. Andre talked about there's really no enforcement of like basic safety traffic laws, and there's a lot of streets that are not safe for pedestrians and bicycles, a lot of automobiles that don't follow safety procedures through intersections and have collisions with bicycles and pedestrians. So that's a conversation that we all had. Did I miss, Andre, did I miss anything?
No, you covered everything well.
Okay, cool. We're done.
All right. Well, I would really love to hear more from folks, but I'm going to try to keep us a little on our agenda here so that we can really get to our presentations. But I thank you for sharing, getting the juices flowing. I think that was a good little, icebreaker, getting folks thinking about the different ways in which different parts of town, different communities can serve people differently when it comes to connecting them and getting them to where they need to go safely around New Orleans. So let me, I'm going to go back to sharing our slide deck and try to move us forward here. All right. And I'm just going to now try to get us into we heard a little bit from what folks said, so thank you for that. I'm going to try to go into a little more detail about the bipartisan infrastructure law and reconnecting communities and dig into that just that way, just so folks understand or have a sense of where we're at here. So our friend Sam Buckley at the Regional Planning Commission put this graphic together just to try to illustrate our moment here, which is that taking any of these ideas that anyone has or any group might have and taking it from the idea stage to actually implementing it in New Orleans or anywhere into construction, you can come up with the idea. Your community group can do that, and that is vital. But it has to go from A to B to C. And that B phase, that planning phase, is absolutely essential in order to take any potentially great idea and move it into that reality zone. So just to say, if the folks who are on this call represent this, they've been a part of the visioning, they've been a part of the planning, they are either about to get into construction or on the cusp of. So they know pretty well what we're talking about here, but I just want to make sure every single person realizes is that no matter what it is, all these worthy projects and even unworthy projects have to go from A to B to Z to C. And the reason that is worth pointing out right now is that we are at year 1 of 5 of IIJA, of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, meaning that it is still very much worth thinking about ideas in that stage A. Because if we can then coalesce a group of residents, group of city leaders and public officials around a worthy vision, a worthy idea, you can apply with the city or not with the city to get a planning grant that are on offer from the federal government to get these feasibility studies done or an environmental review, these detailed analysis done. And once you have that, then you are eligible for the larger construction money and things can become real. So I just wanted to point that out, that because we have 4 more years just within this one law to try to move things from A to B to C. So thank you for indulging me with that. So just a little bit brief moment on Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and then we're going to get right into Reconnecting Communities. Just so we know, we're talking about $550 billion in increased in new spending, and you can see the breakdown of it there. I'll move ahead here, and just this year, there's $7 billion plus additional dollars in new programs, and Reconnecting Communities is one of those new programs, and these are the competitive grants for local governments, and this is one big chunk of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And these competitive grants, what that means is that different localities, different entities basically compete with one another. So we're, for Reconnecting Communities, we're competing against New York, Milwaukee, St. Louis, all on down the rest. So just want to make sure everyone's clear about that. Okay. Reconnecting Communities, what you see on the slide here, this is the purpose of this program. It is a truly unique program in that it is meant to right a wrong. And when President Biden was announcing this program with the passage of the bill, he did highlight New Orleans and the Claiborne overpass as an example of injustice and inequity as a national practice across the country. And so this is an unusual government program, infrastructure program. But you can see here what it's designed to do: remove, retrofit, mitigate transportation facilities like highways or rail lines. So I'm gonna keep moving here because I know people are antsy to get to it. Here is the Department of Transportation's proposed recommendations for how to deal with when you encounter this sort of situation in a city or in another area. These are the solutions that they have listed out: public transportation, removing the infrastructure or working around it, pedestrian walkways, parks, revitalize a main street, complete streets conversions that y'all were just mentioning in your breakout groups. One of our friends, Leah LeBlanc from Greater New Orleans Housing Alliance, participates in our Nerd Outs working groups, and she highlighted the Long Street Bridge in Columbus, Ohio, which is one of the projects that the Department of Transportation highlighted as a model project, where in that installation or intervention, what they did in Columbus was overlay where a highway split neighborhoods right in the middle of in the city. So in that city, the highway is down kind of below the street level. So they made a park bridge across the top where two neighborhoods were disconnected from one another. And you can see here, Leah pointed out that, innovative solutions like this, you can really do a lot to, repair what was, unfortunate situations that cut people off from opportunity and quality of life. So, couple of things just to note about the program: 2 different types of grants, and that's represented here tonight in our presenters. The first is a planning grant, and that goes back to that slide that I was just showing about the different stages of getting a project to reality. And this is about applying to do the work necessary to move the project into that next phase, not the actual construction. And then there's the capital construction grants, which are larger grants once those other planning elements have already been laid. Okay, now we're just going to have a discussion right before going into the presentation, just an open discussion. And we're going to provide 10 minutes here. And this is an opportunity, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, just to hear from folks what their thoughts are, based on what they know about this moment, about this program, stuff they would like to see. So we just wanted to take a moment to just hear from folks and hear what they had to say before we hear from our presenters. So we'll just open up the floor and see if we can be as orderly as we can about it, or if people want to raise their hand, they can do it that way as well.
I think what we'd like to do is have a timer. So I can go ahead and put that up on my screen. I'll set a 45-second timer so you just folks can keep an eye on time.
Would anyone like to kick us off? I see one.
I guess I can start. I raised my hand.
Yeah, there you go, Jessica.
So again, I apologize. I'm running at City Parks. I'm out of breath. But anything that,
fire truck?
but anything that you guys come up with, I'm hoping that the teams are included in the work, giving them a chance to be a part of this process of reclaiming the city. Just want to put that out there. I work with Gracefully Mindful, and I've mentored a lot of the youth, and they really are interested in construction. So please include them in it.
Great point. Thank you, Jessica. Anyone else want to chime in at this moment in time? I guess maybe folks are waiting for the Q&A. They're waiting to, hear and then dissect, and that is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we can. Okay, I'm seeing one comment.
Okay, I will, since I just sent the comment, I will say, because I have so much there, Claiborne was the focus, because Claiborne was such a disaster for New Orleans, for that whole community, and for blocks on either side. It needs to come down, but now the land use has gotten, and the code for building on Claiborne has gotten so terrible that the entire length of Claiborne is horrible. It is absolutely unsafe, totally undesirable, scary, everything. That's what I would like to see, is a comprehensive mobility plan that's an overarching thing that pulls together everything that impacts transportation in the city. And Claiborne is the perfect opportunity to make it. It needs to be where we start, because it is the worst street in the entire city, the worst thoroughfare. Mm-hmm. And so what I would say that the speed needs to be brought down, the raised part needs to be brought down. It needs good wide sidewalks along its lengths. Those curb cuts need to be limited. It needs good lighting. It needs to be walkable. It belongs to us. You know, we live in the community. It belongs to us, not just the cars. And
Let me
right
pick
now,
it up.
it's taken
I'm
over.
coming.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. Can I say something? This is Dawn.
Mm-hmm. Please.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So you're talking about taking down the I-10 portion of Claiborne, correct?
We are going to hear a couple different presentations, but yeah, we're talking about Claiborne and other parts of the city. Yes.
Well, I live in New Orleans East, and even though way back when, before me, you know, the people did not want this bridge, this interstate built. But at this point, I see it as being a disaster to take it down. Where would the cars drop down into the neighborhoods that are coming from New Orleans East or coming from the Metairie area? Where would they be directed? As it is, it's a huge problem if something has happened on I-10 or the Seabrook Bridge. It's basically, it gives you, literally, it's about an hour extra added to your time. So if the Claiborne corridor is removed, I see it as being a huge traffic problem. People will not be able to get to work on time, to get to school on time. Something else needs to be considered. And I do remember this being brought up at the master plan meetings that we had after Katrina. And all of us in New Orleans East were like, what? So I really
That's our
don't
time.
see that as,
That's the time. I'm going to time
Okay.
you.
Okay. Thank you, Monica. And Dawn, thank you. I do think we got the gist of the point. I'm going to go to Amy here and then Nellie, and we only have a few more minutes, but go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, just a couple of minutes. Hey, Dawn, I'm glad you're here. The concerns that you have, I think will be addressed through the presentation. And then maybe we can talk about more in the breakout room. So if you would be so kind as to be patient, I think you'll hear a little bit more about what we can do going forward.
Thanks so much for that, Amy. And I'm just going to hop in here just to add, I think the nature of sort of these critical conversations makes us want to like dive in real deep on this, which is why we wanted to have a moment for this. I want to think just like slightly outside of Claiborne, which we'll have a lot of discussion about tonight, to name some of the other transportation barriers that cause a great concern. For me, I live in St. Roch, and getting to the lower Ninth Ward, where I have a number of friends and loved ones, and getting to even just the Bywater across train tracks and onto the highway. I told a funny tale earlier about sort of the woes of waiting for the train and being late constantly. So I just wanted to also add that I think that makes, one, it lowers productivity for folks. It keeps people from getting to work on time. And then additionally can be just a simple annoyance, even if you're not trying to get to, to work to support your family.
All right. Probably have time for one more if anyone has like one additional comment or question or anything like that.
Jessica Bordelon has her hand up.
I think she went
Jessica
first. Yeah, she was the first one to go.
Sorry, I forgot.
No worries.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, this is Rachel. I won't take much time, but I just kind of want to be a voice for my neighbors that are not here. But one of them, most of the people in my area, I live in St. Cloud, not everyone has a car. And so frequently one of my neighbors, knocks on the door and asks for a ride to get groceries. But when I can't bring her, I see her walking down North Claiborne Avenue with her basket, and there's no sidewalk for her to walk on. And next door to me, the kids are dropped off on Louisa in North Claiborne, and they walk home, and oftentimes they're running home and kind of playing, and cars are honking at them like they're in their way, but they're literally just going home. And if they were to trip on the non-existent sidewalk, it's very disastrous and quite terrifying. So, I mean, I know that they're not going to be on this meeting, but just to be a voice for those around me in my area that, I don't think the cars will be gone from North Claiborne. I'm not expecting that, but safety it should be a priority.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate that comment. Okay, well, we wanted to just provide that little bit of space before we give the floor to each of our presenters for the evening. I'm trying to, once again, get back to where I need to be here. Sorry about that. So I am going to share screen one more time. All right. So first up, we have Mr. Dan Jatres from the city of New Orleans. Dan is the infrastructure project administrator for the Office of Resilience and Sustainability. And he works with Mr. Joe Threat, who has been making the rounds recently. So Dan, take it away.
All right, thank you, Rob. Good evening, everybody. So we've talked about the parameters of the IIJA program and Reconnecting Communities. So as several of you have already brought up, Claiborne Avenue, this is a prime example of the kinds of... Sorry, Rob, You're on mute, Rob, I can't hear you.
Yeah, there's just a lot of crunching going on. I was just trying to deal with that. Maybe, yeah, okay. Go ahead, Dan, I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. So anyway, Claiborne Avenue, as several of you have mentioned, is a corridor that is well suited for this program in trying to correct the historic wrongs of transportation facilities that divide communities. So the state of Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, which controls the expressway and Claiborne Avenue, and the city have developed a framework for a proposal to the capital side of the program. Rob, you're advancing the slides, right?
Yep.
You go to the next one. So this framework is structured around three major elements, and that would be state of good repair related to making the space underneath the freeway more feasible for some sort of...
Wait, Dan, yeah. I'm sorry. There's some audio. I guess it's your audio. Everyone was hearing that, right? It wasn't just...
I heard some muffledness.
Yeah.
Robert, if it may help, I can go ahead and give my presentation. Dan, if you want to try to possibly reconnect audio another way.
Yeah, I'll switch over to phone audio and follow up on you, Sage. Sorry about that, everyone.
Oh yeah, no worries. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Welcome to Zoom world, y'all.
Yeah, it's difficult. Okay, Sage, I'm getting to your stuff here. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, we'll get back to Dan. All right, all right, here we go. Sage Michael, he's ready to do it. He's going to talk about all his work out in New Orleans East. So thanks again, Sage, for being here, and you can go ahead.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Sage Michael. I work with Healthy Golf as New Orleans Climate Justice Organizer. Thank you all for being here. And I just want to kind of talk about what led me on to environmental justice. You all know, as I raise my hand, you can advance the slide, Robert. As you all know, if you all don't know, a beach in New Orleans East, it's across the levee wall. And as we talk about reconnecting communities, for me, the levee disconnects our community from this, what I call heaven on earth right here. It used to be where you'd be able to walk across that levee and go to it and be able to, enjoy that shoreline or back in the days when this was open from 1935 to 1965, it had a tunnel built by Bow Brothers where you could go under that train tracks. But for whatever reasons, when desegregation happened in 1965, they shut this down. And so for me, this levy actually disconnect us away from our communities, and you'll see all the type of beautiful things that was happening over there. You see the swimming pool, that was a big thing for our community. We're disconnected from the waters. There's not a place for us to enjoy waters. We live in fear of water, but we don't enjoy it. Plenty of things happen at Lincoln Beach, Nat King Cole, June Foster, Fast Down, and everything. You can go ahead and advance to the next slide. So one thing when I talk about Lincoln Beach as a project, it's about really for the community, by the community, and I mean that in every way. Too many projects happen where the community is not involved at all. So for me, when Omar Arver unfortunately lost his life when COVID hit, it just placed me in a situation with what I'm gonna do with my time and how I'm gonna invest in my community. And I found that Lincoln Beach was that place that I could really know that I didn't see anything physically or spiritually or anything substantially saying Black Lives Matter. As a matter of fact, I've seen Black people getting pushed into the lakefront from advanced gentrification of my community that I grew up in. So I feel as though right now, Lincoln Beach is that place. We involve with community engagement, civic engagement, and public relations. We control the narrative. And that's about what's very important. We write history, we don't wait for it. We're in a generation where we take over our project because it belongs to the city of New Orleans, and we are the city of New Orleans. Like this article, there's a press club that received the award for it, and that just goes to the length of the project. And you go ahead and advance to the slide, and you can see some of the things we've done. I believe in connecting with all community, for everyone, for every what we call race, for every age bracket. If you advance the slide, it's about for the community, by the community. We have everything we need in the community. You'll see the picture on the top left. That's where I was there like over 2 years ago. Piles of trash on the site, and you'll see me engaging with and then Councilwoman Cindy Wynn and friends like Reggie Ford, and getting on the front page of our newspaper was a big accomplishment to say, look what we did as a community, and people like on that picture, Suave Bob, who recently passed. I've been fighting to open these gates for many people who have passed. Go ahead and advance to the next slide. Here's some more of this. Being on the front page cover of the beautiful Tribune, a beach for our people. Those are just some things that we do. And this is nothing I just started. We've been going on forever with this farming and working with our community. We advance the slide. And here's some before and after shots. Lincoln Beach is ready. We just need the keys to the gate for the government to open it up. You go advance the slide to the next. I believe in ecotourism, connecting ourselves with our community. You talking about how to get around? We can get around in kayaks, boats, and everything, y'all. When we talk about infrastructure, we got to make sure we include this waterways that we have in our systems, not just the streets and the sidewalk, but we have beautiful waterways. You can advance the slide to the next one, and you'll see the city been moving with some assessments for the project, and we've been having some funding for the project with bond money. You can move to the next one with that, $5 million of bond funding. And along when you go to the next slide, you'll see some Restore Act funding. When BP oil spill happened, there are funds to come to our community, and we got $8 million coming from that. You can advance to the next slide. We got state funding of $500,000 directly from the state to put towards the project. And advancing to the next slide, you'll see that it's all about civic engagement. We have a Lincoln Beach Community Advisory Committee. We want to make sure it's equitable and transparent. And we want to establish a cooperative agreement with the city of New Orleans as community members. We're talking about getting park registration with the federal and the state. And I myself, I just want to do a coordinator and consult the project moving forward. I think I'm connected with people, and that's where my skill is. And I'm going to wrap it up in a second, but you could go ahead on back to the next slide. And the community vision is about we just had charrettes, and Amy Stelly, one of our presenters, she was involved with those charrettes, y'all. And it was a beautiful way to have the community involved with the planning process. And we have something else we're planning coming up soon, possibly at the IIJA Culture Center. We want to make sure funding is happening properly, make sure money is in the 2023 budget for it. And it's all about prioritizing the project. And we'll talk about a little bit more where we at in our breakout group in those details. But thank you all for having me, and I appreciate this presentations and opportunity.
Thank you, Sage. Good stuff, good stuff. So believe now we're gonna go back to Mr. Jatres. So I'm going back to his slides here. And Dan, are you there?
Yep, Rob, I am. Can you hear me all right this time?
Sounds a lot better. Yep. I think we're ready to roll.
Right. Right. Well, apologies everyone for that technical glitch. Claiborne Avenue, as several people have discussed tonight, is the kind of project that is highlighted by the Reconnecting Communities program as a piece of transportation infrastructure that divides the community and bringing resources to bear on that. So the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, which owns the facility, and the city are looking at a capital construction avenue. Rob mentioned that there are two different avenues in the Reconnecting Communities program. A proposal that's built around a framework with three major elements. The state of good repair, which is focused on improvements that would better enable the use of the space underneath the elevated structure for the community. That would be like stormwater management, lighting, visual appearance issues. The second element of that framework is around actual enhancements of the space underneath the freeway as broadly conceptualized in the Claiborne Innovation District Master Plan. That there would then be, a community engagement process to develop designs of what exactly the community wants to repurpose that space or improve that space to function as. And then the third element of the framework is a removal of interchange, off-ramps and off-ramps as originally envisioned by the 2014 Livable Claiborne Corridor Plan. That process is envisioned as a planning, community engagement, and design process to identify which ramp or ramps could be or should be modified or removed, as well as funding then to implement the end result of that planning and planning and engagement process. The rest of my slides just kind of talk about each of these three things a little more in depth. So the state of good repair, the stormwater management, right now, the water coming off the elevated structure just kind of falls uncontrolled through the expansion joints in the roadway, through the gap between the eastbound and westbound lanes. So this would be creating a drainage system that would control that water to make the space more usable and to address stormwater management generally about where, where are we putting that water so that it's not adding to flooding conditions that may exist. Lighting, pedestrian scale lighting to make the space more attractive, more safe for the community to utilize, and then working on the general aesthetics of the space underneath, both from either paint perspective or cleaning structural elements that have just, over time gotten dirty. The second piece of the framework, as I mentioned, is building off of the general concept that came out of the Claiborne Innovation District Master Plan from 2018, how to activate or better activate and enhance the space underneath the freeway. So a community engagement process to plan and design what exactly those items would be, whether directly inspired by the master plan or just the broad concept of how can we use this space so that it's not just a fallow, poorly paved space that it is in many of the blocks right now. And then the third element is, so this would be there's a phase one of that under the expressway enhancement that's already been funded through a combination of city bond funds and EDA, which is the Federal Economic Development Administration. So this would be a phase 2 that we would be looking to incorporate into this framework. And then the final part, I mentioned, harkens back to the 2014 Livable Claiborne Community Plan, looking at the opportunities to remove some of the ramps and interchanges along the expressway. So this framework is envisioning it as both the study, the planning, the community engagement around what that would look like, what ramps are feasible and what would the impacts of modifications or removal be, and then money to implement the result of that process. So that's the framework, and we can discuss it more in the breakout sessions. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Dan. A lot to dig into there, but let us move forward, and folks will have time in the breakout room, as he said, to Amy Stelly. And sorry, Amy, I'm out of order now, so I'm just getting to your section here. And Amy Stelly with the Claiborne Avenue Alliance Design Studio. And I'm going to share screen once again. And here you are, Amy.
Thank you, Rob and Nellie, and thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Rob, can you just go to the next slide?
Yep.
And well, I'll talk a little bit about this image first. This is actually one of my favorite images. It is a picture of the column in the 7th Ward, and it just shows how massive this structure is that goes through a residential community. So you can see from the photo really looks at how I-10 literally divides community. Next slide, please. So we have a 10-point plan for our application. The Claiborne Avenue Alliance Design Studio and its partners will be applying for the funding, because this is the first year that the DOT has made funding available to nonprofits to actually conduct planning. And we feel like before you get to capital improvement, there are some things that actually need to be studied before we start removing things. So our strategy is to, number one, conduct an analysis of all plans that have been proposed for Claiborne, including the CID. While I professionally and personally, because I live in the corridor, I live 450 feet from, actually 450 feet from the elevated deck, and then 150 feet from the Orleans Avenue ramp. I have a personal interest in seeing things change on Claiborne. But to be fair to all other proposals, we are going to send them through a rubric and actually do an analysis that looks at performance criteria for each plan and also includes community values. The project or the strategy, I won't say project, strategy, and that could be leave it up and put activities under, remove ramps, total removal. People have even talked about building facades against the expressway. We're going to look at every last strategy, put it through that rubric, and whatever scores best, we're going to propose that it move forward for design development. That strategy then will be developed through a series of community-based workshops. What we would like to do is have community and professionals work side by side, but we certainly want to take the emotions out of the discussion about the interstate and actually make it evidence and performance based. Next slide. Once we decide what's better, we're gonna, this will be conducting a public selection process that identifies a design that looks at the elimination of adverse public health impacts, removal of mobility barriers, encouragement of transit, encouragement of infill development and economic growth. So you can see there's a whole list of things that we're going to look at in our selection process. And as I said before, we're going to conduct a community-driven design development process that results in an engineering feasibility study, because we feel that this is necessary in order for us to move forward in a very well-informed way. So the citizens and the experts will create and model solutions based on the data that informs which decision makes most sense for the corridor and the adjacent neighborhoods. Next slide, please. To, I think, Ann's point, we are going to conduct a needs assessment for land use and zoning reform. The corridor from Canal to Elysian Fields, and that's, we know the Claiborne corridor is much larger, but in that I-10 corridor, there are 10 zoning districts, which is why we have a mess. So we feel that part of actually doing and making an informed decision about the highway is to look at the land use also. So we can't move forward without doing that. Evaluating the housing supply. The I-10 devastated the 7th Ward, but one thing we know now is that 40% of the housing in Treme, we're waiting for some numbers in the 7th Ward, but there is 40% of housing, not vacant lots, not other stuff in Treme alone that is vacant. So we can cure our affordable housing problem by actually further evaluating that, looking at what's just kind of laying fallow because the property owners don't want to invest, and also what is going toward short-term rental, because we all know that that has wrecked particularly historic communities in the sliver by the river because they're accessible to downtown and the French Quarter and all kinds of entertainment. So looking at that housing supply and developing a solution is something we feel that we must do because this is a very complex issue. Next slide. And then we'd like to conduct some placemaking activities that are based on history and the culture in the areas along the corridor. There are merchants on Claiborne who are just dying. They're dying. They feel that the city has ignored them over the course of the years. And I've been tracking this now for at least 5 years. And they have specific desires that can certainly activate places along Claiborne that already exist. So our advice has been to take care of those businesses first. They have hung in there. A lot of them have been hurt by the activities on Claiborne. They certainly have a wish list, and we feel that the placemaking activities can certainly satisfy the wish list that the merchants have put forward. Also, we feel that community engagement for this is a strong requirement. Many in the neighborhood feel that there hasn't been adequate engagement along Claiborne. So one thing we'll do is launch a Reimagine Claiborne community portal where people can certainly see what's going on. Hopefully we'll be able to develop it in a manner that allows community to upload comments and ideas so that we have both in-person conversations and also virtual conversations about what needs to happen with Claiborne. Next slide. The other thing we want to do is post an accountability dashboard because we feel that the city needs transparency, regardless of what strategy is selected to move forward. If we win the grant, we feel that transparency is a requirement. We need to know what engagement activities are going on, what are the program metrics, what are the responses to questions that are going to come from the public, because we know that there will be many. And then finally, certainly document the processes and successes, and then evaluate our outcomes as they relate to equity and environmental justice. So we think that there is a lot to do. Also, to Dawn's point about New Orleans East, we understand very, very deeply how critical the Claiborne Expressway is to New Orleans East. So one of the things we're going to do, in addition to doing traffic modeling, we're also going to do some economic modeling that not only focuses on Claiborne, but focuses on New Orleans East, because New Orleans East needs a plan so that it is not necessarily dependent on Claiborne, the CBD. It needs to develop as its own place. So we want to say to New Orleans East, we have heard the cry for better development in New Orleans East. And we understand that this is this project is a citywide project. It impacts everyone. So our response to New Orleans East is that we will create a foundation that allows us to have a conversation about development of that part of the city too. And also we will certainly, we can't focus on every area of the city, but our economic modeling will show the whole city. So we feel that our plan is going to provide benefits for the city of New Orleans beyond just the Claiborne corridor between Canal or Tulane and Elysian Fields, because things like traffic modeling, economic development modeling, all of those things will help the city. So we are taking a very broad view of this project. And we feel that at the end of the process, we will have a good plan that includes solid economic data, solid traffic data, and certainly engineering feasibility for whatever plan scores highest. Professionally and personally, I think that will be removal, but we're going to put it through an objective process, because this can't be an emotionally driven conversation. We know that it has to be based on data and solid findings. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Amy. Really appreciate that. Appreciate everyone. All of our presenters did a great job. A lot to chew on there. There's no doubt about that. All right, we are a little behind, but we're definitely going to prioritize giving everyone time to go into breakout rooms. We have time for 2, just barely. So any 2 of the 3 folks presentations that you want to ask questions to, we're going to do one, maybe actually let's say 8 minutes, so that we have just a little tiny bit of closing time here. But here's the thing, put your questions in the chat. I hope you are developing your questions. We are capturing literally every question. We're going to post them all online. All of our presenters have agreed to answer all questions directed towards them do so over the coming weeks. And they're very honest people, so they're going to do that. And I do want to just take one quick second to say, thank you to everyone, but also just to the fact of what we're doing here. What we're trying to do is lay down a foundation of understanding about the moment, about the eligibility, about how things are going to work here, so that we have that foundation, and then we inspire each other with these ideas to work together, and then we figure out how to work together over these coming weeks, months, and through these next few years, which are these critical years. So we need to form new coalitions, we need to work together, and we need to find what's worth holding on to build these next great projects. So Nelly, are we able to get into some breakouts?
Planning. And I just want to go on record as saying I support the study. I support the plan that the CID is putting forward. But more importantly, I support the removal of the ramps. Those 3 ramps were identified as St. Philip, North Claiborne, the St. Anne, which is on Orleans Avenue, and if I'm not mistaken, the one at Governor Nichols, the up and down ramps, that would be at St. Philip going up and Governor Nichols coming down, which would open up the community, I understand, again, and it would not have the same effect as it would with the overpass coming down there. That's not either here or there. I won't be living, I don't think, for either one of them. But for what we saw in Treme, someone growing up here, was an opportunity always to be able to lift ourselves up through the culture. And I do believe that's what the CID has in mind, based on those meetings that were held for over a year. And Mr., is it Jeffries or Jatres?
Jatres.
Okay, I can't pronounce it. I'm not good with names. Pronunciation.
No, that's
period.
fine. That's fine.
But I
You can
do
call
try to
me
make
Dan.
my point. Okay, so on a whole different subject, stormwater management, I'm not sure. I'm always going to take the opportunity to say what needs to be said at that time. I do live in Treme. I'm a block away from the overpass, but I also work with Waterwise Gulf South. I'm part of the Stormwater Management Collective with their organization. And we've been trying to get a meeting with you so that we can talk about stormwater management along Claiborne Avenue. And we thought that we would be able to fit into the IIJA, whatever, proposal application. And it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But we do have some ideas if the city is going to actively put forward a proposal that we would like to have included.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, everyone, but I needed to say that. You can cut me off now.
That was good. That was good stuff, Cheryl.
What we're here for.
Thank you, Nellie.
Can I say we're going to have to end these in just a couple minutes, but please do put any questions into the chat. And like I said, people, Dan and folks at the city will answer your questions.
If I could add one thing, Cheryl, I think we have had some preliminary meetings with Waterwise. So I think those conversations have started. If I could ask a question, which of the ramps would you prioritize of taking down? There's a limited amount of funding here.
Of course, always. I think the one at St. Philip, years ago when Mark was the mayor, Mark Morial was mayor, we did a petition. I wish I could find those sheets. We had at least about 500 signatures that we sent to the mayor. Of course, at that time, you had more kids living in Treme, and crossing the highway was a huge problem. So at St. Philip in North Claiborne, in Governor Nichols, and Claiborne would be second. Sorry, you all. I'm sorry I took up most of the time.
No worries.
No worries.
Next, we will have, we'll be able to address comments in the chat, and next we'll have an opportunity to reshuffle and join another group. So
Okay.
if folks wanted to come back here, then I'm interested in the other groups, that's also an option.
Yeah. That's a good question from Anne.
Where's Anne's question? Is it in the chat box?
It's in the chat. She's asking if anyone, I think we're about to break up here, but is anyone in
working with Civic Studio Co-op with one of our projects, and I know they were very involved with Lincoln Beach, so I'm just excited to learn more about the work.
Great. Civic Studios, awesome people, Water Collaborative, Aaron Chang. Oh, we've been working. Yeah. And
I'm a new hire, so I'm still learning the world.
Look, we all a new hire in some aspects. Believe that. Don't get it twisted. Thank you for coming on by. I look forward to meeting with you. Dan, how you doing with GNO Foundation? I see you jumped on. Any questions?
Yeah, good. I'm good, Sage. How are you?
I maintain no complaining, just doing what we do.
Right on. Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, I know that y'all are hustling on a lot of different things out there in the East. Is this one, is the team trying to put together an application of some sort for this specific grant, this Reconnecting Communities grant, or is this still because I think that the deadline for the first one is in a week or two. or if it's more moving towards thinking about future years to get that specific grant.
Yeah, no, the team that we're talking about, like Dan kind of mentioned that we're coming up with a New Orleans East Community Water Plan. And I kind of mentioned that previously with the different projects in the first breakout group. We didn't mention about this grant, but I think it's a possibility and we just getting kind of introduced to it. But the first grant with the NOAA grant, we're going off as a planning grant to put all these projects under one planning phase, and it was extension due, unfortunately, because the hurricane in Florida, you know. So we had a little more time, and I was gonna talk to Nelly to see if this grant right here, Reconnect Communities, this could be possible. We have a lot of work done. So y'all, a lot of this grant work done, we talk about, and like you heard Amy Stelly present, it's about planning and design, and that's a lot of the work get done for the community decision making. And community decision making and planning and control is what I want, and those benefits. I know we talked about jobs a little bit earlier and when those jobs would come and go. I definitely want those jobs to benefit at local, hire first, and job training, interns, fellowships, and those type of workforce development programs. It only makes sense. That's how we solve crime, by giving more opportunities. Yeah. I don't know. I want to leave it open. Anyone else? I know the iPhone users on. I don't know who you want to open up. And we have some time left, a couple of minutes left. But iPhone user, if you want to speak, you're welcome.
That's
No,
you,
I'm
I think,
good.
Miss Cheryl.
Yes, that's me. I already spoke.
All right, cool. Well, let's open the floor. I can be quiet. If anyone else, anything they want to say on their mind, pertinent, we can say that. I can say this. October 15th at the Yellow Building off of Hayne and Vincent, I think it's 14,000 Hayne Boulevard, I believe. Miss Jan Tobias will have an exhibition that she's creating for Lincoln Beach. We're supporting that. The next thing up for Lincoln Beach, to my surprise, I just found out today, there's a calendar item put forward together by Councilman Thomas on this Thursday's council for a cooperative agreement between the state of Louisiana and to plan and construct Lincoln Beach. That is a new development. I had to talk and strategize with some people what that means, but just right quick, a minute. Me personally, for community, I believe that Lincoln Beach is a spot that the city can own, manage, construct, and all of money go back to the city. That's our overview. I know we had 1 minute left. Just a round robin. Yes or no? Is it good or bad that the state design and construct Lincoln Beach? Just we don't have no knowledge of it. I don't. But yes or no? If you can put it in the chat, if y'all want to give a quick little survey, is it good or bad that the state is designing and constructing Lincoln Beach? Just a yes or no, without any knowledge. I don't have any background.
I would say proceed with caution. It could mean a lot more resources, but it probably also ties things up and slows it down and removes and gets the control further away from community and locals.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have high concern about this. I personally found out about this when one of my constituents was looking for some other calendar item, and I was gonna be there anyway, but it's definitely on my agenda to be there, and I'm not too.
I hope that was good and informative for folks. I hope people either got their questions answered or at least put their question in the chat. I am gonna, we only have a couple minutes left. We're gonna get folks out of here on time, or very, very, very close to on time, if not 100% on time, but very close to on time. All right. Oops. Okay, so just to close us out here, just a reminder once again that if you go to cbno.org/reconnecting, which you can go from the homepage. If you scroll down one, you'll see Reconnecting Communities. You can go there. You can submit a question that our presenters or CBNO will answer. We're going to keep this open through the weekend, so we don't have an infinite ability to get folks to answer these questions, but they have agreed to answer this go round. So please do go there if you have any further questions that come up, and try to address them to specific presenters if at all possible. Thank you again to our presenters. This was very informative and a great example of how we hope public affairs operates as much as we can. We appreciate Dan representing the city, sharing the city's plans ahead of the application for this grant funding. Appreciate Amy and Sage with bringing us in and their plans as well. Here's their websites where you can follow along with their projects and the work that they do. Really, truly, thanks so much for that. And I just want to close out with just a note here, some images of our city and our history, and all the different changes, or just a few changes that it has gone through and that we, the people of the city, have gone through. So this is an image of Claiborne, 1966, the year that the oak trees were taken out and that the expressway began to be installed. All those beautiful oak trees, and someone on the call today, I was on Oliver Thomas's morning show, and someone noted that those oak trees line the bayou now, that they were moved up along Bayou St. John, which I was like, I did not know that. So maybe that was folklore, maybe it's not. But taken from one place, taken from people, and it's just not that long ago, is something to really think about and remember. Some other images of New Orleans.
Wow.
From 10 years earlier, you know, it's a lot to say about all of these images. Just going to move along here. 1 year prior to that, the bridge across the river is going up. That bridge only so old as well. Streetcar, an old streetcar along, I think that's in Lakeview, up near West End. And 100 years ago, next year, the opening of the Industrial Canal. So these are, you know, this city changes, the choices, the projects that the city takes on, that we, the residents, take on, that the city leaders take on. Things can go one way, they can go another way. Things can also, you know, be maintained. I noticed in all of these images how new and nice all this infrastructure is, and how different it looks today. So that's another choice that is made. And just want to remind us that we have a lot of proud people who've worked really hard to build better lives here in New Orleans. And let's do our part for all of them and for ourselves moving forward. And just want to remind you to stay in touch with us here at CBNO and hopefully be a part of the effort that we're doing with our partners at IC Change and Healthy Gulf, to actually be a part of this work, to document your community, tell us how it's looking, you know, take a picture of a post, of the street, of the bridge, of the barrier, of the flooding, of the trees in your area. It really does help, and we're going to follow up with a lot more calls to action around this effort. And please do follow our campaign, Building Our Future. Again, here's the website for the Reconnecting Communities program that we are hosting at cbno.org. And Our Future is our broader campaign around these issues. That's all, 3 minutes over. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time tonight. Please do follow up with us. Go submit your question to /reconnecting there, and hope to see all of you soon.